This 9-inch angle grinder has just suddenly stopped working. I actually lent it to a friend, and whilst he's been using it, it's just packed in. He informs me that he has checked the fuse, so we'll assume that the fuse is okay. So we're going to actually have a look inside, and we're going to try and find out what the part is that's stopping it from working. Obviously it's some electrical problem. If it was mechanical it'd still be working, but you'd probably get a lot of noise from it, or the blade wouldn't spin. But this is obviously an electrical problem. When you squeeze the trigger in, nothing happens when it's plugged in. A large grinder like this tends to always have a dead man switch on it, and that means that you've got to physically hold the switch on for it to work. As soon as you let go of that, the power will be cut to the machine. That's a safety feature on machines like this. So we're going to take a look inside and we're going to try and find out what's wrong with it, and we'll just do a few simple tests. But in order to do the tests you're going to need a multimeter. So I'm going to leave the blade on it because that's helping to actually balance the machine for now. You'll notice on this particular machine that we've got some covers there that we can take off, and they're the covers that you remove to replace the brushes, because the brushes are replaceable in this model. This particular grinder is about 12 years old. It's been an extremely good grinder, it's done plenty of work, and we're just going to look to see whether it's economical or not to repair it. Obviously if the part that's in there is burnt out, is very expensive, it won't be worthwhile repairing it, you're better off getting a new one. So we're just going to open it up now and we're going to take a look inside. So we're going to start off by removing that, which is the brush cover, and these are just a simple Phillips screw. On a lot of machines like this they are now Torx screws, and sometimes you even get tamper-proof Torx. So we can just gently lever that off, and you can see that in there's a lot of dust, and really we need to get all that off. So I'm going to scrape all that off before I put this back, and I'm going to give it a wipe. Ideally you blow that out with your compressor, but I don't actually have mine plugged in at the minute. So if you're observant you'll notice that I pulled a small screw out of that hole, so I'm going to place that up there out of the way, then I don't get it mixed up. So I'm now going to remove these two screws and these two screws. And you'll notice that that is a slightly longer screw than the first one that we took out. And you can see that that is the longest screw of all, and that one will probably be the same length. So it's always important to put the screws back in the correct place. It's probably immediately obvious because a long screw probably will not go where a short screw should go. It'll probably bottom out. So we can now remove the last one, and now we can start to prise open the handle. So that just comes off like that, and you can see again that there is considerable dust deposits in there, which we will clean before we put back. So now we've exposed the switch, some people call it a trigger, doesn't really matter what you call it, it does the same thing, inside the machine. So what we need to do now is, we know the fuse is working because that's been checked, so now we need to check the lead. So we need to make sure that there's no internal break anywhere in this cable. So what we need to do is set the multimeter onto the bleep test function. So now when we get continuity, the machine bleeps. I have done a separate video on how to use a multimeter for testing for continuity, so I'm not going to spend too much time explaining that to you. All you need to know is when we touch them two probes together we get continuity. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the plug from the machine, and I'm going to clip this end onto one of the pins from the plug, and then I'm going to probe this end here, because this is where the actual machine connects to. So you can see there that we've got continuity on that one. So I'll now swap over to the other pin on the plug, and I'll now probe the bottom terminal, and you can see again that we've got continuity. So that means that from the plug into the machine is perfectly okay, that's working fine. So the next thing we're going to check is the next thing in the sequence, which is of course the trigger or the switch. So to test this, you'll notice that there's a terminal there and a terminal there both sides. So this looks like a double pole switch. So when you press the switch in, it makes the contact between that terminal and that terminal and that terminal and that terminal, which then gives the machine the power to run. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our crocodile clip and we're going to clip that onto the first terminal there, and then we're going to probe the first terminal at this side here. Now when we press this switch, the machine should bleep. It's just actually switched itself off. So if I touch that on there, you can hear that it's bleeping, obviously, because I'm bypassing the switch. But if I press the switch in and touch that terminal, there's absolutely nothing. And also if I touch the terminal on the opposite side, there's nothing. So by pressing the switch in and touching this terminal, that tells me that this switch is no longer working. So there's some components in that switch that's now faulty, and that means that we can no longer use the angle grinder until we've fixed it. So what we need to do is we need to order a replacement switch. So if you look at the label here, you can see that it's a DW490. So if you go online and you search for a DW490 spurs, and this particular model is an A1, they tend to have different models like A model, B model, C model, or a 1 model, 2 model or 3 model, depending on when they were made. Generally, the later the model number, the later it was made. So if you get a DW490 that's a C or a C3, that means that it's a newer model than this. And as I've already said, this one is about 12 years old. So now we need to obtain a replacement switch and price that up, and then we can fit that in this unit, and then we can get the machine working again. So I found a decent website that sold Dewalt spurs, and I managed to pick this up for 25 quid. So it's well worth replacing that, because this machine was about 120 quid when I bought it. To buy a replacement one, you're looking at the same money again. So if we do the test again that I did on the actual grinder, I place that onto that terminal, and then I put that probe on there, and now when we press the switch in, you can see that we've got continuity. So as soon as I put this switch in there, we should be good to go. We should have a new machine basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip it down now, put the new switch in, I'm going to give it a clean and reassemble it. So in order to get the old switch out, we're going to have to remove the brush holder at this side. And we'll just lever that out. So if we look here, we can see that we've got two spade connectors. So we're going to grab those and pull those off. So that one goes at the top, and the one at the bottom goes at the bottom. So we won't forget that later when we go to put it back. Just to make this a bit easier, I'm actually going to undo the cord grip. So now I can pull that out, and I can now undo the terminals. So if we remember that the neutral's at the bottom and the live's at the top, it shouldn't really make a difference. But we'll put it back the same way we took it out. So I'll just turn it that way, and I'll just press that side of the handle off. And I'm going to remove that completely, then I can give it a good clean before I put it back. So that's the last spade connector there. And that one is a bit stiff. So I'll just prise that off using a screwdriver. So now all we need to do is switch the two switches over, and that should be quite easy because it's just got a lug on the end of it. So if we just prise that off, we can pull that side off, and the same at that side, and that's the old switch off. So I'm now just going to give this a bit of a clean. And that will make it easier to get back together. So now I'm just going to push the switch back into position, and then we can reconnect the spare connectors on the top there. So we'll now just put that neutral back in there, which isn't a very good fit. So I'm putting these wires back in there, but they're not a very good fit, so what I'm doing is I'm just bending the actual conductor over slightly, and that way the screw's got a lot more to grip. Obviously you've got to make sure you get all the strands in. So I'll just give that a tighten now. So I've now got the neutral and live connectors back in there, and they are very tight. So now we can start to reassemble the handle. All we need to do here is make sure that the rubber flex holder is seated correctly in there, and then we can put the cord grip back on. So we're just going to make sure now that none of these wires actually get trapped when we put the machine back together. So we can now put this half of the machine back on, and that just pushes into the part that we put on first. And then when we've done that, we can put the screws back in the correct order. So the long ones go there, and the two short ones go there. Also, if you look in there, you'll be able to see the armature on the back of the motor and see that that's in good condition. If that was damaged in any way, it's pointless spending £25 on a new switch for this, because you'll just be wasting your money, because eventually that will go. So this machine, because it just needed a new switch at £25, it was well worth fixing. So now all we need to do is fit the brush covers, and they just push in, and they just secure it in with one of the small screws. So that's how to fault find and replace a switch on a Dewalt angle grinder. So now if we take the switch that we took out and we put the crocodile clip on the one terminal there, and then press the switch in and touch the terminal there, you can see that we get nothing. And if we swap terminals onto that side, it's the same again. So you can see that this switch is clearly no longer working. You probably could take it to bits and possibly fix it, but it's just not worth it. You're better off buying a brand new unit.